Hello and welcome to the newsroom with Sandra. Today we're going to be taking a look at three important stories. The first is going to be what has happened at the UN Security Council with the Denmark representative speaking up with regards to the TTP posing a very serious threat to Central and South Asia. And this is integral to Pakistan's stance as well, given the fact that Pakistan has put forward with credible evidence the safe havens that exist, the terror networks that exist from within Afghanistan, which have also been talked about by the Denmark representative in the ISIL and Al-Qaeda Sanctions Committee as part of the UNSC, in which, of course, the presence of these terrorist organizations and the presence of attacks coming in from Afghanistan soil towards Pakistan were mentioned. And this is something that was then echoed by Pakistan's representative as well. But what needs to be, of course, taken a closer look at is where the situation is, given the fact that the recent talks between Pakistan and Afghanistan have not resulted in a breakthrough. And so there still remains a lot of discussions left as to how exactly this will be moving forward and what options then exist for Pakistan. But the fact that the international community and the United Nations recognizes this threat is an important move in the right direction. For our next segment, we're going to be taking a look at what has happened in India post the Bihar elections and the kind of aftermath that now exists in the political domains in India, with, of course, Nitish Kumar taking oath for the record 10th time. This is very important also in terms of what that means for the continuation of BJP and Modi's regime, and then, of course, what options then exist for the opposition parties and how exactly are they going to be able to move ahead and break this monopoly. There's, of course, a lot of calls for rigging in elections, and there's been a lot of stances that the opposition parties have taken for this victory to be unfair and not representative of the will of the people. But despite that, what has happened remains to be true, that we have Nitish Kumar again sitting in office and the BJP still holding power, albeit with the party JDL in Bihar. And then we're going to be lastly also taking a look at what is happening in Gaza. We see, of course, that unfortunately, despite the very important peace deal brokered by the United States and other countries around the world, since the 10th of October, there have been repeated attacks and violations by Israel. And just in the last 24 hours, we have reports of about 30 Palestinians being killed by Israeli airstrikes. And this is, of course, something that is significant in pointing towards what the on-ground situation is and what is needed to end the suffering of the people of Gaza. There are much challenges that still remain in implementing the peace deal and the ceasefire in true letter and spirit. And while these violations by Israel continue, we cannot fully achieve that. And so there needs to be calls for countries, including the United States and the international community at large, to ensure that the engagements that were earlier discussed are implemented fully and that we can move in the right direction to resolving what the current issues is and the suffering that continues to increase, as the UN report has also talked about how there is now even less funding than before that is adding to a hunger crisis, to the already deteriorated situation of the people of Gaza. So these are the stories that we're going to be taking a look at in the show tonight, and we'll be starting off with, of course, what has happened at the UNSC, with Denmark's representative talking about the very important aspect to Pakistan with regards of the presence of TTP in Afghanistan and the threat that it poses. For that, we've been joined by a geostrategic expert, Dr. Auqaab Malik. Thank you very much for joining us and being part of the newsroom today. Mr. Malik, I'd like your perspective on, given the fact that Pakistan's stance has been put forward repeatedly at a number of platforms. We've done that with credible evidence. We have repeatedly said that these safe havens exist, the terror organizations exist. And this being echoed in the United Nations Security Council is an important step. But can this rhetoric really translate into a real pressure on the Afghan Taliban regime to do something about this issue? Because so far we've had no guarantees from them.
I think that what is important here is to recognize that not just finally, but we are being supported, our ideas and our allegations about what's been going on as far as Afghan Taliban's support for TTP is being recognized. But we have to also note that this is just not a governmental organization that's done this. This is part of the United Nations Security Council and the Committee on Sanctions on Al-Qaeda and ISIS and these militant groups, which have noted this. So they've been following these particular groups, they've been following TTP, they've been looking at the incidents, they've done extensive research on this. They would not say this if there wasn't sound evidence for this, which then corroborates what we've been saying all along. In other words, we can't be denied now. So this is support for Pakistan's stance in every single manner, and no other government can deny that now. And that includes those particular external parties and governments that may be supporting TTP. And that's why we got to look at now.
Yeah.
And this we should be used as a form of pressure on particular governments maybe who may be supporting TTP.
But
now,
does that pressure really add value? Because will that pressure really be taken as pressure by these governments?
well, you know, when we think about which government we're talking about, I think we're talking about India in that respect and Afghan Taliban.
Yeah.
So when we're looking at this, we know that Afghan Taliban in this report are supporting TTP. But there's no mention of India at this moment in time. So we need to maintain that momentum to build that pressure up to come out with this. However, India is a very strong economic power now.
Yeah.
And it has massive linkages throughout the world with many different countries, and they can influence those countries in many different ways, especially economically, as it is doing so in Afghanistan. And providing allegiances from their side towards Indian security interests as well. So we've got to be wary of that, because we're not in the same position globally in that respect. And India is seen as a counterweight to China as far as the Americans are concerned. Although that's been a bit waning lately as far as Indian activities are concerned in respect to BRICS and SEO maybe, or the buying of oil from Russia especially, and now the purchase of many jet fighters, for example. So there's a dichotomy there. There's a bit of a dual posture, a two-sidedness to India. So the West is holding back now as far as commitments to India to some extent, because they're becoming more wary of exactly what their true commitment was. However, India's always had a very significant anti-American lobby inside their own parliament. So that might be taking more precedent lately, given their geostrategic concerns.
Okay.
We can take advantage of this. And advantage seems like a wrong word, but I'm saying we can take this into account and leverage it, use it to our advantage, where we can't really pressure many governments in that respect, but we can provide evidence directly.
Yeah.
And because we've been vindicated in what we've been saying about TTP, and this is on an international platform, there is more truth to that about what we're saying about India as well. Okay, so what we say would be taken into as more solid evidence in real terms.
Sure, and I'll continue this discussion with you. Let's also welcome in the newsroom a political analyst, Mr. Jahangir Khattak, and we'll explore this further with him. Thank you very much, Khattak Sahab, for being part of the newsroom. I'd like your take also on what is being discussed at the moment, while we welcome what is being stated in the UNSC by Denmark and the larger international community realizing what's really going on. An important aspect that is being raised just now is the fact that why not then move this to the existence of the elements coming in from India as well, the kind of sponsoring that is done, the kind of facilitating that is being done. And Pakistan has put forward this evidence a number of times before. Why is it that the international community is shy of recognizing and stating that?
Thank you for having me on your show, Sana. I think it's a very complicated situation. It's not very simple just to say that because India is there, so everything is happening. Yes, India is a factor, but India is not the factor. I think there are many, many other factors. This statement by the Denmark's deputy permanent representative at the UNSC is certainly significant. But again, it's not new. United Nations has repeatedly, for years, has identified different groups. It has identified at least 14 different terrorist groups on Afghan soil operating there. They have safe havens there. That is also documented. And that's why more than 40 Afghan leaders of the current Taliban regime are on their blacklist. Even if Amir Khan Muttaqi has to go outside Afghanistan, he has to seek its permission. So they are already blacklisted. So I think that part is done. What has not been done is, I think, the negotiations between Pakistan and Afghanistan, because at the end of the day, I think it should be Pakistan's own diplomatic ability to resolve this with the help of friendly governments. We have seen Qatar being involved. We have seen Turkey being involved. We have not seen many other friends of Pakistan, like Saudi Arabia. Pakistan is its closest ally now. But when was the last time a Saudi diplomat traveled to Kabul to convince these Afghan Taliban to change their policy? When the evidence is there, and it's overwhelming evidence, there's no denying the fact. But the important thing is what next? And that what next is a question which has no answer so far. We have tried everything. We have tried to bomb them. We have tried to engage them. We have tried to help them. We have tried to oppose them. Nothing has worked because I feel that there is inconsistency on both sides. And also our friends who are basically very concerned about the situation, including, don't forget, the Central Asian countries. I think that rest of Central Asia is pretty much okay with Taliban right now, except Tajikistan. But Tajikistan is also trying to mend its relations with Taliban. They just sent their 14-member delegation to Kabul just last week or last Friday. They met senior Taliban officials. And Tajikistan has the same complaint that Pakistan has, but they are engaging. On our part, we need mediators. I think this is not a good sign. In order to overcome all these, the first thing that Pakistan and Afghanistan needs to do is, yes, we have proven it. Even if we sit here and talk about it for 2 hours, I'm not sure if anything will come out of it. Yes, if we talk about what should be done is the key. And that key is still missing. And Pakistan certainly has proved its case.
If you
All
can also share light on when you think about what has happened previously, there is, of course, a lot of engagement that Pakistan has had with Afghanistan previously. And there has been a lot of interactions, a lot of historic relationships. We've hosted refugees for decades. There has been a lot of efforts that Pakistan has put in terms of helping the people of Afghanistan. And this is very, very integral to our relationship with the country. But given the fact that we have the current situation with mediators coming in, it's just because we haven't had the kind of positive response from the Afghan Taliban regime, despite the repeated engagements that Pakistan has done previously without mediators as well. So when we see the current situation, do you really think that it's reflective of something that Pakistan hasn't done so far? Where do you think that Pakistan was lacking in all of the efforts it has made to engage with the Afghan Taliban?
That's a very good question. And I think one thing that, like what you mentioned, I agree with that Pakistan has done all that. I also mentioned that earlier. One thing that Pakistan has not done is consistently. There is lack of consistency. Pakistan needs to be more consistent. For how many years Pakistan and India have spoken about Kashmir? For how many years have mediators come in between them? Is Pakistan, is India a bigger threat than Afghanistan for Pakistan? So if we have a formula for engaging India, why we have a different formula for Afghanistan? That's my question. And that's where I'm saying that, look, you have to look at a problem from a different perspective. This perspective is where you are saying that, okay, we have issues, we have differences, we have proven our position, and they have their position. But what is diplomacy about? Diplomacy is about resolving very complicated issues through conversation, continuous dialogue.
But Jahangir
Like
Saab,
this.
I really have to differ here, because there is the analogy that you're drawing between Pakistan and Afghanistan, and Pakistan and India. They're two very completely different situations. And Pakistan, in fact, has been very, very consistent in its stances on both of these aspects, on both of its relationships with India and in Afghanistan in its own way. The foreign policy stance of Pakistan has been consistent. Now, when we take a look at what has happened with India. With regards to the negotiating table, Pakistan has always put forward the option of having a peace dialogue, talking about the Kashmir issue, resolving that issue for moving forward. That's an integral stance for any discussion to move forward to. With Afghanistan, our single point agenda right now with the terrorist organizations that exist within Afghanistan is also very, very clear. We need that guarantee from the Afghan
When did
Taliban
Qatar
regime,
came between Pakistan and India?
the same reassurance that they have
When did
given
Qatar
earlier
came in
that they will
between
not allow
Pakistan and
their soil
India?
to be used
When
against
did Turkey
Pakistan.
came in between? That's what I'm saying. There is an inconsistency. Yes, I respect your opinion, but let me say what I want to say. And I want to say that,
Go
look,
ahead, of course. No, no, please
Pakistan
do go
wants
ahead. What do you
peace
want to
with
say?
every country. There is no doubt about it. My
Yeah.
my argument is that continue the dialogue. And Pakistan is continuing the dialogue. I am not disagreeing with that either. Where my position is, and where I
But
think that
exactly who
Pakistan
do you
should have
want
been a
us to
bit more
continue?
proactive.
Who do you want us to continue the dialogue with? Who do you want us to
The
continue the
same
dialogue
that
with? The terrorist
the same
organizations,
people,
the Afghan Taliban regime who are supporting them? We've
the
given
same
all of the
people that
options,
we were
all of the
advocating
avenues.
for.
Our delegation stayed till the last day in Istanbul to continue this. When do we draw the red line, in your opinion? If the other side
I think
is not, yes, go
I
ahead.
think that this is a good question. Where do we draw the red line? First of all, the conversation should continue with the people whom we were advocating for at the United Nations 2 years back. So we should continue to talk to them. That's one. Two, the red line. Yes, that's a very, very important question. And I agree with you that Pakistan has shown evidence, everything. But then there are other levers which you can use other than going for wars, which Taliban actually, because they are the ones who have become a staging ground for TTP, and this we heard it at UN as well. So no doubt about that. But also, do you think that red line means closing all the contacts and talking through third party, or red line means sending them messages through different means and telling them that hey, we don't want to go into a continuous argument or a continuous war. We want
But
peace.
that has
We want
already been
peace for you.
done.
We
We've
want
done
peace
that
for them.
multiple
And
times,
that's what
Jahangir
we have
Sahab.
communicated. I agree with you. We have communicated that. But that's exactly what we have been telling other countries as well. That's where I am saying that while we are engaging other third parties, which is fine, but
Yeah.
I think Pakistan and Afghanistan should not disengage. More disengagement is not good for Pakistan. Look at it. They are already moving towards India. First, their foreign minister spent more than a week there, even though he didn't get anything, 20 ambulances and assurance that we will
Right,
reopen our
absolutely.
embassy. That's it.
Jahangir Sahab, I'd like you to stay in the newsroom with us. We have another guest in the studio. I'll take his perspective on this too. Mr. Malik, your take on what Jahangir Sahab is saying. Is that making sense in Pakistan's strategy of moving forward? Have we not done all of this before?
We have, and we've been continuously doing this. And you remember our history with the Taliban. Whether I should say this or not, but I will do, because I studied Afghanistan even for my PhD. I was there. I was inside Afghanistan many times. The fact of the matter is, Taliban would never have won without us. And that's a point that even the Americans admitted many times. The reason why they lost is because of us. So take that for what it is. When you look at it this way, they owe us a hell of a lot. However, we have to look at it this way. Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan were also fighting with them directly against the Americans. And they have the same philosophy. They're intertwined within the Taliban, and their linkages throughout the power centers in Afghan Taliban and the other groups are very solidified now and consolidated over the last few years since Afghan Taliban took power. To extract them is going to be extremely difficult, and the Taliban recognize that. If they make any attempt to do that, that's a virtual civil war within Afghanistan, within the Taliban. So I can recognize their position and how difficult it is, and think we need to recognize that also. However, that doesn't mean we can give in to this in any way whatsoever. There's a recent book that was published just in the last month or two by the current rector of NUST, Dr. Zaid Latif. And he mentions in this book that what Pakistan really needs to do is to make sure that the benefits that the Taliban receive from us far outweigh the benefits that they receive from any association with TTP. Now, it's a really good idea. And what we've got to do is put it into a practice. That does mean engagement and diplomacy, but also we need to show that we use a stick when necessary, and there are real repercussions for any impingement or infringement of the rules or any agreement that we have.
Yeah.
This is what we've been doing also, that we can't accept them sponsoring, literally holding up and allowing, that's sponsoring a terrorist group and terrorist outfit to come and attack us and kill our civilians and military and everybody in this country. We cannot allow that.
Sure.
And this is why we attack them. Whether they agree with that or not is something they've got to resolve on their side. The fact of the matter is, they know exactly the game that's being played now by them. Okay? And I understand where their position is, but they have to show something to us, which they are refusing to do so. So we have to step up the pressure. And this is what the UN is all about. This is what it is about, what I said in a previous show here, that we need to make sure that they understand that there's pressure around them from all the other countries. Now, with the Security Council announcement by Denmark and the permanent representative there, it is one notch in our favor. It is not everything like he said.
Sure.
So we need to put the pressure on as well, on other governments, and make them recognize that this is just not against us. The Chinese should be worried. ETIM, East Turkestan Islamic Movement. Russia, an increased Islamization of Central Asia, for example. Islamization not in the sense that traditional Islam. We're talking about extremism. And that puts a threat to Central Asian states, and I think you understand that. Those countries want to engage Taliban primarily because they want to prevent increased cross-border activities or inciting any militancy within those countries. And Tajikistan, with a long border with Afghanistan, is very much cognizant exactly what the impacts can be, because they've been fighting civil war for many years in this regard. Okay? So it's very vulnerable. So we're not alone in this. Okay? And what we've got to recognize is that we have to build partners in the region and around the world.
Yeah.
Okay? And these partners will recognize the authorities apart from ourselves. They will recognize the United Nations Security Council. That has an impact, especially when their own interests are being threatened. And it's been notified that this TTP is not just a threat to Pakistan, it's a threat to global community. Because the export of that militancy and that extremism has no boundaries.
Right.
And that's what we need to project more so than anything else.
But you talked about incentives. I want to understand what more incentives can Pakistan offer that they haven't done already that will tilt that balance?
Well, this is where it comes into. There is some partial truth to what your other guest has been saying. Diplomacy is the answer, there is no doubt. But diplomacy also comes with the threat of use of force or other sanctions as and when necessary, because it doesn't always work. We live in the real world. It's an unfortunate realist environment where the threat of force does have some impact when other engagement does not. It's because these threats and the threat of violence or the use of violence is another means of policy where the means of diplomacy is failing. And we're at that stage right now. We keep that pressure up, I don't doubt. But we have the option to utilize engagement.
Okay.
If they are willing to engage, that's where the problem lies.
Exactly.
Are they willing to engage? And the ball is in their court, and it's in the Taliban's court at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Jahangir Sahab, I want your perspective on this too, because it's important when we talk about engagement, and as you earlier talked about as well, Pakistan has been for peace, has been for engagement, but it's necessary for that to be reciprocated. And when that will to engage is not being reciprocated from the other side, then what? And how do we make sure that that happens? How are you seeing the Afghan Taliban's interactions with other states, including states from Central Asia, including Russia and others? Why is it that the will to engage is there, but the will to engage in terms of what Pakistan is demanding for, which is again the same reassurances that regional players also need, is not being given by the Afghan Taliban regime?
That's a great question. And I think, first of all, what the ambassador just mentioned, I think I agree with him. He raised really those same points that I was also talking about pretty much. If you look at Central Asian states, you will see that their emphasis is more on economic engagement. Look at Uzbekistan, look at Turkmenistan, look at even Tajikistan. All of them are engaging with Taliban. They may have huge differences. Remember that Uzbekistan is the country which I think still, and in fact, they have handed over few of the helicopters and other air assets to Americans, but all of them were in Uzbekistan and they belong to Afghanistan. So they were there. But still, Taliban were engaging with them, Uzbekistan was engaging with them. Their trade has gone up. Look at Iran. Iran has the pretty much, except for terrorism, in terms of illegal border crossings, Iran had the biggest issue amongst all the Afghanistan's neighbors. What Iran did, Iran is engaging their trade with Afghanistan is going to reach around $2 billion. They have disagreements. They have huge issues over Helmand River. Remember that Iran is a lower riparian country and they have an agreement which was signed in 70s. And Taliban are not respecting that. That's what Iranians say. But despite that, the engagement is there. Disagreements are also there. Same is with Tajikistan. So what I'm saying is, if you look at it, Pakistan has also engaged with them. Pakistan has also traded with them. But when the borders became hot, when we have these tensions, certainly the border points closed down. Pakistan has deported almost 1.5 million Afghan refugees. And guess what? Iran has also deported more than almost 1.5 million Afghan refugees. Iran is building a wall on Afghanistan's border, but still it is engaging. So that's why I am stressing that Pakistan should engage. Now, the question is that red
Jhangi
line
Sahib, do
that
you
you
think that the
mentioned.
kind of threat that exists from the TTP to Pakistan is a threat that any other country is currently facing? The attacks that Pakistan has been going through, even just recently, that are emanating from within Afghanistan, that's not true for Central Asian states, for example.
That's very true. Not to that extent. But remember that the Russian deputy foreign minister just mentioned last week that they see the biggest threat is emanating from Afghanistan. But at the same time, they are saying that, oh, we have to build relations with them so that we can drive them away from these terrorist groups. I know it's very, very complicated. Like, I completely agree with you that Pakistan is facing, like among all the neighbors, Pakistan is facing biggest threats from among any of the Afghanistan neighbors from Afghanistan. So there is no denying the fact. And that's why I say that it's a very complicated situation. It does not have a simple answer where you will just take a very hard line position and say that, okay, this is my red line, I'm closing everything and we are done. So what are you doing? You are giving a virtual walkover to the countries that want to build space there. You are giving them walkover. Do you want to do that? Is it in your national interest? I don't think so. So that's why I stress that Pakistan, yes, I 100% agree with you, everything. But there is one thing. Pakistan will have to come up with a new strategy where you identify one area that, okay, we know that here is a concentration of terrorists and we have credible evidence. Here is the evidence. We are giving you a deadline. Either remove them or we are coming. Then you do that, but don't close the borders, please. Keep the borders open. Don't close the bilateral trade. It's Pakistan which is suffering. Afghans will get money, get something from anywhere. They just cut down their tariffs for India. Like Ariana Air is now
Suffers
charging instead
greatly
of
because of this
$2,
also, and our hearts go to the people of Afghanistan who are suffering because of this, and we urge the Afghan Taliban regime to think about their own people. But thank you so much, Jhangi
That's
Khattak, for
true.
joining us and being part of the newsroom today. I'd like your perspective on this also, Mr. Malik, because it's essential for Pakistan to take certain measures for its own national security, and it is the country that is facing a direct threat coming in from Afghanistan and with the terrorist organizations that exist. Does that not make our relationship or our measures or our options very different from other countries?
Well, when we're talking about different countries, but I think we're relating to Central Asian countries at this moment in time, maybe Iran.
Sure.
Because they're the region and they're the ones that are directly affected. The ones indirectly affected may be militancy increasing and linkages within and espousing those same views. Yes, we are more directly affected than any other country. directly, primarily because TTP, which is the largest organization that's there right now, and interlinked, not through just ideology, philosophy, but ethnicity, language, history.
Yeah.
So when we look at that, we've got to look at the philosophy behind these people who are intrinsically absolutely against our establishment and our system as it exists now. We have flaws like any other country, but they're absolutely against the idea that we're having a burgeoning democracy here. We're trying to fulfill those obligations towards the people. We're trying to grow this idea. There are a lot of problems. However, they're completely against the system altogether. If they were to come into power, they would completely dismantle what we have. And would change everything drastically. This is what we're fighting against. That extreme form of idea that would take us back to the Middle Ages and medieval times. We do not want that. And this is why we have to stand our ground against this idea. And that's what they represent. And unfortunately, Taliban espouse the same ideas. So it is very complicated. The problem is Taliban is in power now. And Russia is engaging, these other countries are engaging primarily because they want peace on their borders. They don't want infiltration by militants in any way whatsoever, or ideas transmitted across that could cause problems from within, homegrown. Nor do we. And we do need engagement.
Right.
But we also have to close the borders when necessary to show them that we mean business.
Absolutely.
And we can't put our heads down in any way whatsoever.
Yes.
And that's not going to happen.
Absolutely, and these are integral steps that Pakistan has taken for its own security and are very, very important to the current dynamics. And we understand that the international community has recognized this too, but needs to also take a closer look at a very important aspect of the region, which is what is emanating from within Afghanistan. And so a peaceful and stable Afghanistan is in everyone's favor. We're now going to be taking a look at our next story that focuses on what has happened in Bihar with the elections that have recently been concluded, and Nitish Kumar taking oath for the 10th record time. And this, of course, points again towards the kind of stronghold that still exists by the BJP and the Modi regime, despite the best efforts of the opposition parties and, of course, their allegations of rigging. But these charges, while they still remain, have not been able to change what is still on ground. We've been joined by Mr. Shalinder Singh, who's a political analyst. Thank you very much, Mr. Singh, for being part of the newsroom today. It's been a while since we've seen you on the show. I'd like your perspective on how you think what is currently going on in Bihar is representative of the political dynamics of the country. We saw a lot of efforts made by Congress, for example, or other opposition parties as to what the situation in Bihar could possibly look like. But what has been going on for quite some time now, with Mr. Kumar been sitting in office for so long and then again for the 10th time taking oath, signifies that the BJP has its roots deep in the state and then, of course, in the larger India. Do you think that the opposition will be able to overcome that?
Jai Hind, Namaskar, Sana, great to be on your show after quite a long, and you have taken out a topic which is very close to the India's heart, because what happens in Bihar and UP, it literally decides what the country faces. Now, coming down to the election, this is the goodness of the democracy. This is the price of the democracy which one has to pay. That you will always find there will be some criticism that this has not happened right, that has not happened right. But this is one unique election where we are finding that that saying comes true. You cannot fool all the people all the time. So if Nitish is coming for the 10th time, I think people must have seen something good about it. And that is what is democracy all about. The base what he has in the women folk of the Bihar is just phenomenal. You cannot break it, because the kind of, he went against the wine and sharab bandi. Now, that was very, very popular with the ladies of that state. The bigger thing is that people have seen some growth. Otherwise, why will they vote? Why will they bring him back? We must understand strategies can be there, that BJP combining, everybody combining, and on similar lines, opposition combining. But, well, people see through that what is going on, what has happened. If they have seen some hope that, yes, whatever has happened is in the correct direction, they would have voted for it. This is what is democracy all about. Coming down to the opposition point, that yes, there has been some kind of rigging. But this time the rigging, or the kind of jungle raj, the kind of looting away of the booths, there has not been even one single case. Even after this, the opposition is prepared to accept, because you see, when we are talking about Congress limiting themselves to 6 seats, there must be something really wrong. They do understand, because if people have brought them down to 6 seats and they have given Owaisi another 6 seat, who's the first timer coming, that means in spite of the religion and the Muslim factor for Owaisi, people would have given him a chance because they see hope in him. That yes, here is a man. Let us start giving from their own constituency. So overall, let me tell you, it's a good democracy which has won. There will be criticism, but overall, this election has been very good.
Right, and I understand that, Mr. Singh, but and you're right in pointing out that it's important to the democratic institutions and the system to continue, and for that, of course, a fair election is important. And I understand you're saying criticism will be there, but in terms of the allegations that the opposition parties have been pointing out, do you think that they're not true? Do you think that the kind of statements that we're hearing of how the Election Commission was involved, the kind of elements that the BJP were involved in, has that not happened? Do you think that is not true?
If that has happened, let's presume that the opposition is absolutely right. I'm just presuming. Why have they not gone to the court? Why are not they putting up, when the elections were going on, if you saw that something is going wrong at a particular booth or during that election time, why have you not raised your voice? There was not one single voice raised at that time. That means what? That means the opposition is understanding. And you just cannot say that all the seats were rigged by somebody. At all the seats, Election Commission, I do understand that criticism which you are pointing out, that Nitish giving 10,000 rupees in the accounts of all the ladies should have not happened. I personally would have agreed that yes, this should have not happened. But well, if the Election Commission has not taken a cognizance, in spite of there being a protest, you should have gone to the court. Let's say you have not gone to the court even at that time. Let's go now. You see, the problem is that when opposition itself is also into offering money against vote, how can morally they go against somebody who has actually given the money? This freebies which are going on is what? This is all money. And freebies, if it is liked by the democracy and the people to vote, well, everybody is in part of it. BJP started with the point that no, there should be no freebies, but they are also part of
Mr.
it.
Singh, but Mr. Singh, then that means that the elections itself can be put under question given the fact that all the parties involved are paying for votes.
This is what I'm saying. This is the norm now. You see, what is Election Commission? What is judiciary? All these things are part of my society. And if the society is going by the trend that the freebies have to be given, now here is a freebie given officially into everybody's account, in the lady's account.
But does that truly reflect democracy?
Oh, this is what I'm saying. This is the price you have to pay for the democracy. That if the democracy, that is the people, are demanding this, are happy with this, that fine. This is something exactly like 80 crore people are getting free rations. Why? Even if they don't require. Well, that is the way people are.
If I understand correctly, Mr. Singh, what you're saying that in a democracy where people are buying votes, it is acceptable.
No, this is not buying vote. If you are buying vote, I would have paid 1 rupee to Sana and taken her vote, given 2 rupees to somebody who's demanding 2 rupees, 3. These are declarations. You still had the choice that, okay, fine. If opposition parties are saying we'll put 25,000 rupees in your account the day we come into election.
But isn't it the same thing, Mr. Singh? If one party can pay a higher price, they can get the votes. Another party, if it isn't able to match that price, will not get the votes. This just means that the suffering of the people, their current situations, their poor conditions, that is being exploited just to get votes.
No, but if you are saying that it is only being paid to the poor people, it was paid across the board to all the ladies of that state. And above all, when you are saying somebody pays more or less, well, these are declarations. If some opposition parties had promised 25,000 rupees, Nitish has given only 10,000 rupees. You see why? because the feeling coming out from there, from the public, is very simple. They are saying, I am as such going to vote for Nitish for the good work done. If in addition to that, a personal benefit of acknowledgement, appreciation is coming down to me well in advance, well, why avoid it? I see if the people are also on a higher moral ground that no, I'm not prepared to sell my vote. Refuse this money.
Right, absolutely. I understand your point, Mr. Shalinder Singh. Thank you very much for joining us in the newsroom. We're out of time, but this is, of course, very essential to what you said is currently going on, and we're going to explore that further. Talking to Dr. Syed Mujahid Gilani, who's President Kashmir Youth Alliance, who's also joined us in the newsroom. Thank you very much, Mr. Gilani, for being part of the show. Firstly, your take on what is currently happening as part of the elections in Bihar. It's, of course, very, very integral to what that means for the overall dynamics of India. As you know, that it reflects who really is sitting in power. And so it means the monopoly, the ideology, the regime of Modi and BJP still holds power. And we were just discussing that with Mr. Singh, being an analyst from India, and he was talking about how what really, in a sense, happened is that different party members were able to get votes or sympathies of voters by paying them money. Can you hear me?
Sorry, I got cut in the last few sentences, I believe. Could you kindly repeat the question?
Yes, of course I would. The situation in Bihar is reflective of what the situation is in India. And so I want your perspective then when we hear experts talking about how essentially it boils down to who paid more and who was able to buy the votes. Do you really think that this is going to represent the will of the people? And then, of course, in terms of the larger monopoly that the BJP has been enjoying for quite some time now, will the opposition parties really be able to break it?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Sana, you're very right about it. You see, a true representative democracy basically finds ways and means to flourish and promote political institutes, political traditions, and these political traditions ultimately involve communities, territories, and particularly it never ignores the marginalized people in the state, be it Bihar this time or be it the mainland Indian Dominion. What we must understand is that Bihar harbors almost 130 million population with almost 70.7% Muslims, only second to UP, that's the Muslim majority in the Indian Dominion. But unfortunately, what we see and what we have been seeing over the past 25 years is that the Muslim representation in the Bihar Assembly has dwindled down from 11% to even less than 5% in the 2025 elections. So when we talk about democracy for once, and particularly the bigger, greater, and shining India that claims itself as the biggest democracy, we must take into factor and we must take into account the Muslim population of Bihar as well. If you are actually paying money to the people and you're buying your votes, on the other hand, you're also terming the Muslims, you're also labeling the Muslims of Bihar as Ghuspaitias or infiltrators. In fact, Giri Raj, one of the prominent leaders of Janata Dal, had actually called the Muslims of Bihar before these elections as Namak Harams or traitors. So with these kind of statements, with these kinds of allegations that were placed on the Muslims in Bihar, what kind of a democracy, what kind of representation can we expect at this point in time in the current assembly that is now going to be led by Nitish Kumar, a person who has previously as well not given Muslims what they deserve. In Bihar, when we talk about the literacy rate, if the total literacy rate is 68%, it is only 38% when concerns the Muslims, and only 8% of them are able to jump over grade 12. This is unfortunately the condition of Muslims in Bihar, and Nitish Kumar has been governing the area for the past 20 years.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Mujahid Gilani, speaking to us at length about what is currently going on. We're now going to be taking a look at our last segment that focuses on the situation in Gaza and the very important end of suffering of the people of Gaza that is nowhere in sight, unfortunately, despite the US brokered peace deal on the 10th of October, because we've seen violations of the ceasefire happening and with the Israeli strikes still continuing. For that, we've been joined by former Ambassador Mr. G.R. Paluch to take a look at what the current situation is and what is needed. Thank you very much for joining us, Ambassador Saab. I'd like your take on when we see the current situation. It is important to link it with what the members of the international community, including the United States, agreed upon last month in making sure that we move towards a proper peace in Gaza. While that is encouraged, and that was the first phase of a much larger peace agenda, we have seen that the ceasefire is very, very fragile. Of course, it has been violated numerous times by Israel. Both the parties have been blaming each other, and at the end of the day, it's the Palestinians who have been suffering. So what really do you think needs to be done at this moment in making sure that it is implemented in true letter spirit? Is the United States going to be putting that pressure on Israel to ensure that it upholds the ceasefire? Because that is the commitment the US president gave.
Yeah, I think the party to that agreement, the 20-point agreement now, which has been codified by the UN Security Council resolution, needs to be implemented immediately, and that requires, of course, the stabilization force, international stabilization force, and but before all that happens, I think the bloodshed again. The Netanyahu regime is on this spree of killing. I mean, I was appalled to see the killing of a 15-year-old boy that was displayed actually on Al Jazeera. And the tragic was that they stand by the soldiers and let him, I mean, I can't utter the word, to breathe his last, that young 15-year-old boy, which is against international humanitarian law, against humanitarian law, international law, and of course even laws of the law of the conflicts. Even if there's an enemy of the soldier of the enemy, you have to, if he is wounded, he cannot be let to die. He has to be given a medical assistance. So I think the Netanyahu regime has crossed all the limits of inhumanity and has really, the US government, the parties to the conflict have to really put pressure on Israel to stop this killing till the time all those elements of this agreement, which is the only ray of hope actually, that a normalcy will return to Gaza and West Bank, and that Middle East will see ultimately a day where all the people, they live in peace, and that there's no more bloodshed. But my worries are increasing day by day, because they don't seem, even on the day when the Security Council resolution was being tabled, which was passed with 13 members favoring it and none opposing it, even on that day, Netanyahu said that I'm against the establishment of a Palestinian state. So that is a big kind of gap between what the people who are in power in Israel and what the international community wants it to do. For that, I think US has a huge role to play.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Ambassador G.R. Paluch, for joining us and talking to us about this. Mr. Malik, I want your take on this too, because the ambassador is right. When we have Israel denying that it's not going to go ahead with a two-state solution, how will we ever move in the direction of making sure there's peace in Gaza? The violations are existing. Both sides are blaming each other. The peace deal was great in letter, but it hasn't really been implemented on ground. So what next?
Well, we've got to understand what's happening in Israel also. There have been massive protests by Israelis against Netanyahu, openly condemning him for his actions, although the caveat is that it's more the impact it has on Israeli society as opposed to the inhumanity and its brutality against Palestinians. So we can utilize that still and recognize that it's not a monolithic view that he represents the whole of Israel. In fact, there's a lot of cracks in his system. He had the vote amongst the extremists. It's declining. He still has a lot of strength, but he's not going to live forever.
Yeah.
In fact, the way he's acting and behaving, anything can change if somebody takes anything into their own hands, and I don't doubt that. But what is disconcerting is that the US still accepts what he says, and even though they know what is happening and the absolute depravity of what he's doing, they still kind of support him. That's unfortunate. And I think the US needs to recognize the whole world is against what is happening in Palestine, in Gaza, and what is happening in the West Bank.
Yes.
Now, I can say that because I've also been there to both sides, and I've seen exactly how they've been traumatized, the people, for generations.
Absolutely.
And this is what we have to put and continue to put our hands down and say, no, we don't accept this.
Yeah.
And we have to push for every attempt and every way that we can, all ways and means to achieve the end and give freedom to Palestine.
That they truly deserve and that they have the right to. Thank you very much, Malik Saab, for joining us, being part of the newsroom. And we're going to be, of course, taking a look at a number of stories from the national community as we continue further. But that's all that we have from today. And, of course, we'll be back tomorrow.